Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 28 of the Clutch Dump. Guys, we are doing another top 10, but this evening we're recording an episode talking about the top 10 greatest race cars of all time. And this one is probably the one that Ben and I were looking forward to the most of all the top 10s as of now. But before we get into that, make sure to follow us on socials at the Clutch Dump on Instagram, at the Clutch Dump Podcast on YouTube. And then wherever you listen to us on podcasts, search the Clutch Dump, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, or others. Ben, we have some housekeeping to get into. Ben Walther, as always, joining me opposite. And we have more news than we've had in a while, actually.
More news than we've had in a while, indeed. Yeah, it's been an interesting, 2 days, which is nice because it's been rather quiet because Christmas and New Year's and all that stuff. So I got a couple things that I'm going to run through real quick. If you're watching us on YouTube, I will put some visuals up on the screen. Real quick, Hyundai has released their 2023 livery for the i20N. It looks like last year's livery, just a bit different. Hyundai is kind of like Red Bull as far as liveries go. It's basically last year's, just the lines are a bit different and, a different shade of blue, and that's about it.
Exactly.
So they have obviously revealed their livery, and we should be expecting the M-Sport livery for the Ford Puma and the Toyota Yaris livery soon, because at the time of recording this, which would be Tuesday the 10th, we are a mere 8 days away from the start of the Monte Carlo Rally.
Yep.
So rally news to follow. Also today, Chevy announced that the Corvette E-Ray will debut on January 17th, which is just next
close.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Next Tuesday. So the E-Ray, you've probably seen the video of an all-wheel drive Corvette sliding in the snow. Despite the fact it's being called the E-Ray, it's not all electric, it's the hybrid one. So cool. I don't know. Should be interesting. We will report on that next week.
Yep.
And the last bit of news that I'm going to cover is a really dumb car. It's very cool, and I'm glad it exists, but this one doesn't make sense. So, we are from Texas. We do things a bit differently here. We do things a bit bigger here, especially when it comes to silly horsepower numbers. And no one in Texas does silly horsepower better than Hennessy, and we have the recently debuted Hennessy Venom F5 Revolution. Cool. Looks awesome.
Red, white, and blue, baby.
Fantastic. This is the track-focused version of the Venom F5. Problems with this. Number one, I haven't really seen anything on the regular F5. The concept was put out 2 or 3 years ago, and then I haven't seen any videos about it. I've seen videos of cars driving around. Obviously customers have them.
Right.
I've seen 10 or 15 different Instagram posts.
Right, but Top Gear hasn't been this is the Hennessy F5.
Right. Top Gear hasn't done anything, even CarWow. No one's done anything with the F5. So hopefully it's good. I don't know. It certainly looks better than the original Venom. Nick, do you remember the original Venom?
Yes.
From 10 years ago.
It was a very bloated Lotus Exige or Elise.
Yeah, it was an Elise that was stretched and widened and then had 1,500 horsepower.
Yeah.
Because welcome to Texas. So the F5 Revolution, my problems with it, number one, is the track focus part. Because if you're on YouTube, you can see the pictures of it here. You can see you've got a splitter down at the bottom, you've got 2 canards, and you've got that wing out back, as well as a diffuser. Now that's all well and good, except for the fact that it makes 1,800 horsepower. And nothing else on any track day ever makes 1,800 horsepower. F1 cars don't do that. Can-Am cars didn't do that. Le Mans prototype cars don't do that. Even Time Attack cars are only at 1,500 horsepower now.
Right, but Time Attack cars look like kids' drawings when it comes to the amount of aero that they have. And this is
they
not
have
that.
Stupid amounts of aero.
Yeah.
So 1,817 horsepower. I'm a bit upset it's not 1,776 horsepower. I'm gonna be honest.
No, they can do more. They can do more.
We want 2,000 horsepower. It's sub 3,000 pounds, which is really impressive.
That's
and
astonishing
for something that makes 1,800 horsepower. It's $2.7 million, and they're only going to make 24. Supposedly,
Here's
most of them
what
are
I
sold.
love about Hennessy is it's like, yeah, Koenigsegg makes it like, okay, this is a stupid. So it's like what Hennessy is to Koenigsegg what Chevy or Ford is to Ferrari, where it's
Yes.
Chevy and Ford make faster cars. Yeah, they're not quite as good. They
Sure.
don't last as long. They're kind of plasticky, but they go faster.
But they're really loud in your face.
Like, but we are Ferrari. And then there's Koenigsegg, which is like, oh, we've thought of all these geometric whatever.
Right.
Like they thought of everything there is to think of, and the carbon, if you look at it just the right way, looks like the Mona Lisa. Like there's all this crap, and then it's just Hennessy, where it's like, listen,
so we put your turbos on it.
we slapped cardboard on and called them canards.
Right.
That's about all we're gonna do, but it makes a shit ton of horsepower. So
right. Now downforce figures, because it's a track car and that's what matters. We have 800. We have 800 pounds of downforce, which doesn't seem like a whole lot, especially when you consider
it's a lot in a vacuum, but not for that car.
800 pounds of downforce at 186 miles an hour. And then, no, here's the best part, is the next downforce number they quoted. 1,400 pounds of downforce at 250 miles per hour. Nick Patty, I am no motorsport expert, you know. I like to think myself as a motorsport enthusiast.
Sure.
Which racetracks are you doing 250 miles an hour on?
Genuinely, it would come down to the acceleration, but I'm like, maybe the Nordschleife straight, the main
straight, and that's it.
Maybe the Mulsanne if it got rid of the chicanes, but outside of that,
right? Because Le Mans is straight now. The back straight of Coda isn't 250 miles an hour long.
Depending on how much speed you carry up through Radion and Eau Rouge.
Well, here's the thing, though, is this car is still rear-wheel drive, which means it can, and it's not a hybrid. It's just bonkers.
Screaming Eagles.
So, which means it can't have more than like a 355 tire out back, which is a lot, but it's 1,800 horsepower, which is more.
Which is more.
Which is more than a 355.
In your horsepower to tire width ratio, it's more.
Right. It's more. So I don't like it's cool, but it's not useful anywhere. You
but see, but that's okay, because all I want from Hennessy is to make America still like. I want America to be in the conversation when it comes to the fastest cars on the planet.
Right.
Like, I don't care that it's useless. But the Europeans only make useless fast things. Just make ours more useless and faster.
Right. So yeah. So like my thing with this is, if you watched our last episode, I mentioned the Aston Martin Valkyrie, which makes half the horsepower of this, and 4 times the downforce.
Yeah, but this is but listen here. It ain't naturally aspirated. Is it? The Valkyrie?
No, this is not. This is the
Valkyrie. Oh, no, I mean, it's not a hybrid, or it doesn't have any batteries. It's just cylinders, gas, and wind.
The Valkyrie doesn't have any hybrid.
Okay, then which one is it that does? The Valhalla? What's the other absurd?
The other absurd. No, the Valhalla is the V8 car. It's the one below that, the Vanquish, because the Vanquish is mid-engine now.
We'll get into that in another episode. I don't know why I'm sitting here as if that's
Hennessy Venom F5 Revolution.
Indeed.
Looks cool. Probably is really fast.
In a straight line.
Yes, Nick Patty, you had other news.
Yeah, so when it comes to the world of cool things, I'm just kidding. We have some NASCAR news. Really, the main NASCAR news is Petty GMS has announced that they're doing the livery reviews tomorrow. So we'll see that tomorrow. The day that this airs, that will have gone live. Sports Car 365 reports that apparently IMSA and Michelin have reduced the amount of tire allocation that the GTP class gets for Daytona. So the strategies are going to be very different, according to Team Penske's Jonathan Diuguid. Diuguid. Don't know how to say it. So it's going to be a more interesting race because tires are actually going to have a part to play. Ferrari news. This is probably the biggest of the other news. But Ferrari confirmed its 6 drivers for the factory hypercar lineup for the 2023 World Endurance Championship season. In one car, we have James Collado, Alessandro Perguidi, and Antonio Giovinazzi, which is like, that's an incredible lineup.
Pretty sick
And then
lineup.
second, we have Antonio Fuoco, Nicholas Nielsen, and Miguel Molina, who are all factory Ferrari GT drivers, and they are stepping up to the hypercar program with Ferrari. F1 news. The FIA is in the process of selecting 2 new race directors for the 2023 season. This is from Marca.com, but Ben Sulayem has confirmed that. It's Bobby Rahaal's birthday, so happy birthday to Bobby Rahal, IndyCar legend. More IMSA, again from Sports Car 365. And Shelby and I are going to get to see it. The Chevrolet Corvette Z06 GT3R is being unveiled Friday at the Daytona International Speedway during the Rolex 24. Will Power is joining Sun Energy One Racing, and he's going to be driving at the Rolex 24, making his debut in a GTD Mercedes. So that's pretty cool.
Cool.
And then last but not least, the F1 story from BBC yesterday. And I quote, within F1, there's a general sense that many of those racing in America in categories where teams buy cars off the shelf and run them with fairly small-scale operations don't quite grasp just how high that level in F1 is, how complex the task. And so everybody is, and rightfully so, clapping back and saying, screw the F1 elites, blah, blah, blah. We know what we're doing, like, you don't understand. But what some people have been saying is maybe F1 just needs to adopt a more similar strategy to how the American series run. Because if you look at the racing in most of American racing, sports car, NASCAR, IndyCar, it's better quality racing than Formula One. And I tweeted, and I was kind of happy with this. Somebody had responded, political, or not a political, but a motorsports pundit, and they had mentioned, IndyCar's success or whatever. And I was just mentioning, I wish that, it was like, dear American F1 fans, go watch IndyCar because it's just as good, blah, blah, blah. And I was sitting there and I was like, for people that don't understand or don't watch IndyCar, you can have any driver and any team win any race, anytime.
Yep.
It's all up for grabs the entire time. And they're faster than F1 cars, and on particular tracks, sometimes they're slower depending because of the downforce figures.
Sure.
But in terms of the actual speed of the cars, they're faster. You get ovals and road courses. You get more races during the season, and it's more accessible for a cheaper price to go watch it in person. So that is to say, for us at the Clutch Dump, all you F1 fans, be turncoats. Go watch IndyCar. Anyway,
Go watch IndyCar. I'm going to watch IndyCar this year, so I'm quite excited about it.
I'm very happy. I'm happy that you will be.
Well, Nick Patty, does that wrap up your news?
Yes, no, that is all of it. I am closing
Okay.
Twitter down, and it is just my top 10 list of the greatest race cars of all time, and this episode.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, so...
Well,
Ladies
okay,
and
so, ladies and gentlemen, for this episode, here's the thing. I nearly came up with 2 lists and let Ben decide, do I do the meme or do I do the real list? I did the meme. My list is only Porsches, including my honorable mentions. Here's the thing, though.
Did you do 5 honorable mentions that
Here's
are also
the thing,
Porsches?
though.
Oh, my gosh.
In the course of us reviewing the top 10, we'll talk about some of the figures. But with race cars, I think a crucial part of if they're a great race car or not is either technological prowess or innovation, on-track success, or something that captured fans' hearts. Something that, for instance, the Coca-Cola 956, that's not actually in my list. It could be the bright blue Plymouth Superbird that Richard Petty drove.
Sure.
Regardless of the success, they're so iconic that they have to be in the list. So that was kind of the 3 criteria, but I'm going to explain why for my top 10, I'm not saying if you were to ask me to be 100% serious, do I think it's all Porsches? But I think the argument can be made. So that is why I'm here with my Porsche. You can't see it, but there's 944s on the back.
He's wearing Porsche merch.
And then my Pfaff Porsche hat, because Pfaff's going to go for the 3-peat at Daytona this year. And Ben his username in this podcast, his profile name, is Porsches aren't that great. So I'm going to be excited, and I hope that there's at least one Porsche on his list. But I think you already told me that there's not.
No. There is one. Okay. Okay. To start off, we'll clear the air.
Please.
For starters, Nick Patty is wrong. We'll just get that out of the way. Second of all, while I do not think that the 10 greatest race cars of all time are all Porsches, I think it's very hard to mention the word motorsport and not the name Porsche.
Fair point. I applaud you.
There is a Porsche on my list. There is a Porsche in my honorable mention as well. So I played the game fairly.
So
I think I did it properly.
Let me pop this idea out at you. What if we start with honorable mentions so people can see what didn't make the cut and then builds up anticipation for what actually did?
What is your honorable mentions? I'm curious.
Well,
by please, no, please go ahead. What was your honorable mentions?
I just realized I had one that was in my honorable mentions. It's also on my list. So I have 4 honorable mentions.
Gosh, this guy.
Wait, no, I'll just add another to make it 5. It's easy enough. There's so many good race cars, obviously. Okay, so first and foremost, honorable mentions.
Yes.
The GT3 RSR. All generations. Because it is one car. It's just different
I will
years
be honest,
of the car.
I'm impressed it's this far down. Okay.
Yeah. Listen, for people listening, class victories at Daytona, class victories at Le Mans, class victories at Sebring, and every other endurance race you can name. Overall win at Petit Le Mans.
Yes.
In 2016, I think.
Yes.
The main reason I didn't put it any higher up on the list is I have a soft spot, and I think other people do, for vintage Porsche race cars. So
sure.
I think there is one car on this list that was made when I was alive.
Let's see, I have two cars in my top 10 were made while I was alive.
Yeah,
so one of them just barely.
So the GT3 RSR is an absolute legend, but I think there's more important RSRs that I have higher up on my list. Ben, what is one of your honorable mentions?
Ooh, I will start with the Lotus 79.
Fantastic. There's going to be a lot of F1 cars on your list. I know it.
Was, well, actually, let me point out. F1 cars on Ben's list, there is 1.
In your top 10 or total?
In the top 10. There's 1. There's 2 in the honorable mentions. So the Lotus 79, for those of you who aren't familiar, is the 1978 Formula 1 car from Lotus, driven by none other than Mario Andretti, and it is known for being the first ground effects car.
Yep.
Not the first aero car, the first ground effects car. Revolutionary car for motorsports as a whole. Obviously, ground effects is a huge part of Formula One these days.
Defined all of the 80s.
Right.
Across everything.
Defined motorsport for the rest of the time. And that was back when Lotus was one of the top dogs.
Top of the world.
In Formula One. And it's one of my favorite Loti ever. So I wanted to put it on my list, but I found 10 cars that were better. So Lotus 79. Nick Patty, another car.
Okay,
honorable mention.
There's a lot of Porsche and then a 9 in my list. So the first one that I'm going to mention in my honorable mentions is the Porsche 906.
Beautiful car.
Because the Porsche 90 and then put in any even number after it are the most beautiful, granted, not necessarily successful, but beautiful cars ever made.
Correct.
The Porsche 906, for those of you that don't know, was a mid-60s Porsche sports car. And this was the step up from the 911 when you went racing either as a privateer or as a gentleman driver. And so these flat six, not super powerful, but their strong suit was being extremely lightweight, extremely aerodynamic, fairly easy to drive in the sense that they're well balanced and they're grippy.
The 9.0 Porsches were, whether it's a 904, 906, 908, not only were they stunning because almost all sports cars from the 60s are stunning, I present to you the Ferrari 330. But like almost all Porsche 9.0 cars were stupid light because they were aluminum chassis with fiberglass bodies on them.
Yep.
Which was weird for Porsche since they were building 911s out of were early 911s aluminum or steel?
I want to say steel, but I'm probably wrong.
I think the early ones were. But all the Porsche 9.0 cars are gorgeous, and they all weighed like sub 2,000 pounds, which is why they were so fast and could be down on horsepower.
Yeah, but I put it in here purely for the design. They were winning cars, but nothing overall Le Mans, nothing like that.
Sure.
So, it's a beautiful car, and I had to put it in the honorable mentions.
Okay, another honorable mention from myself here. The Porsche 919.
There you go.
So the 919 obviously won the World Endurance Championships in 2015, 16, and 17. Incredibly successful. It won Le Mans all 3 of those years. Crazy dominant car. And I just wanted to put a little asterisk in there as well for the 919 Evo. Little shout out to the nuttiest race car. I'll be honest. When I made my list, when I first made it, it was number 1. I had it up there strictly for the 919 Evo, and then I was like, but the 919 Evo didn't race, so dial it back, put it down, and then it dropped down. But the Evo, for those of you who aren't familiar, there'll be pictures or video of it up now.
It was Porsche going, what are we going to do to build the fastest car in all of the time trials?
Well, and honestly, it makes sense, because if you think about it, LMP1 died, so they can't race the car anymore.
Right.
They're not going to sell the car because it's Porsche history, and it's Porsche, and they don't do that. And they were like, well, we have it lying around, and we spent, like, I don't know, $500 million to develop this platform.
Yeah.
They were like, what if we just throw the rulebook away and see what it does? And it's like, oh, turns out it's way faster than Formula One cars and can run a 5.16 around the Nürburgring. I think that onboard of the 919 Evo around the Nordschleife from January of 2018, I can be that accurate with it, from January of 2018 is probably my most viewed video, like the video that I've watched the most on YouTube.
My most viewed video on YouTube is Lee Keen in a 74 RSR around Le Mans. But
there we go. That sums up this podcast.
Yep.
But I've watched that onboard probably close to 100 times. And that's probably the reason why I know the Nürburgring so well.
Right.
But, like, it moves the way that cars shouldn't move. Like,
it moves, like, when you hear people describe UFOs in the sky and pilots are like, there's no known propulsion to make it move like that. That's the 919 Evo on a racetrack.
Well, and the best part is if you watch, which if you haven't, whenever you're done watching this, go watch that. Just look up 919 Evo Nürburgring, and it'll be the first video. But it shows telemetry of throttle and brake.
Yeah.
And the parts where he just doesn't lift, or where he just barely lifts, and it's like, that's all you need. Like, you went into that doing, like, 350 kilometers an hour, and you're like, oh, this 45-degree turn, I'll just, lift a little bit.
Breathe off the throttle.
And it'll just stick and go through. And it's just it's such a weird, mind jumble to see a car, a closed wheel car. It's not an open wheel car. It's not an F1 car. Move like an F1 car. That doesn't make sense. It shouldn't do that. And I think that just really shows how restricted LMP1 cars were.
Oh, yeah.
So 919 on my list. Nick Patty,
there you go.
Another car of your honorable mentions.
So I'm going to list 2, because 1 I don't need to talk about. Rothman's Turbo Cup, obviously. Talked enough about it.
Here's the thing. Big point, ladies and gentlemen. Write it down. This is what I was curious about coming into this. Number 1, how many times Nick Patty was going to be wrong? So far, none. But where was the Turbo Cup going to land? And the fact that it's in the honorable in the honorable mentions, Nick Patty, I have a bit more respect for you as a man. I'm very proud of you to not put your own race car in the top 10.
I'll throw in another one that I can actually talk about. The Porsche RS Spyder, the LMP2 prototype.
Gorgeous
Easily
car.
the most gorgeous Porsche race car, besides the 963, probably for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Class victories at Le Mans and LMP2, class victories at Daytona and Sebring and LMP2, driven by Patrick Long and Romain Dumas and a bunch of other drivers.
Yep.
Super winning car. It sucks that it was an LMP2 because if it was just more and it was LMP1 and was that winning, it would be a car that nobody would ever forget. But it's just kind of been lost to history. ALMS as a whole series, American Le Mans series, has kind of been just kind of lost to to ages. Which is a tragedy because that's childhood. But
it did give us the 918 Spider
and the RS Spider in that yellow Penske DHL livery.
Okay, I was about to say, if I think of Porsche Le Mans cars, if I'm not thinking of the old Group C and 917 liveries, in my mind, I see a yellow car.
It's
RS Spider. Good choice. Good choice.
Two more yours.
Two more from me. McLaren F1 GTR.
Okay.
Self-explanatory.
Honorable mentions make sense, at least.
Well, honorable mentions. And the reason why I put it in there is it's Gordon Murray didn't want to take the car racing, and then a bunch of his customers were like, no, but we're going to go racing.
Right.
So he developed the aero kit for that car in a week, and then it won Le Mans. So F1 GTR.
And because Ben is a Gordon Murray fanboy.
It's okay. It is true. And then the next car, which I'm honestly surprised is in the honorable mentions, is some car called the Ferrari F2004. Which, if you're unfamiliar with it, it's some Formula One car.
If you're unfamiliar with it, the 2004 and F2004 is the 2004 year designation for the Formula One car.
Correct. And I think some guy named Michael was driving it, if I recall.
Yeah, Michael and Ruben.
Yes. Quick stats on that car. 20 races, 15 wins, 30 podiums, 12 pole positions, 14 fastest laps, 1 constructor championship, as well as 1 driver championship. F2004.
The only part of my list where you could argue that Porsche doesn't have the top 10 best cars of all time is purely because I was not comfortable chalking the McLaren Tag Turbo as a Porsche.
Sure.
But Porsche's F1 history is the only reason I would have to allow for one F1 car to have been a better race car than some of these Porsches. But yeah.
Well, since we're here, I'm going to go ahead and throw in my last one.
Oh, please.
Which is the Corvette C5R.
Yes. Yes.
So C5R, 56 races, 31 wins, 50 podiums, 24 pole positions, 4 team championships, 4 constructor championships, 3 drivers championships.
Incredibly, and Daytona wins and Le Mans wins, right? And it was the last sports car that Dale drove, so
it did all the things, and it had a number 3 on the side. It did the stuff. It's very cool. But it did not make my top 10. Mr. Patty, your last honorable mention.
It's the Porsche 910. So
okay, all right.
There you go.
There it is.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the top 10. We are here.
Okay.
So, if any of those surprised you, and you sat there and you're like, "Those were only honorable mentions."
Yes.
Buckle up because you're not going to like mine.
Nick Patty, I would like to hear your number 10, please.
My number 10 is the Porsche 919 Hybrid. Same years it won the championships, consecutively won 3 Le Mans in a row.
Yep.
And for those of y'all that say, yeah, but it's only 3. This is just off the top of my head knowledge. I believe Ferrari, Ford, and Porsche themselves are the only brand, and Audi, to win overall Le Mans 3 times in a row.
Yep.
And the list of manufacturers that have won Le Mans overall 3 times total, period, ever,
is
also very small. My dog just knocked over a bunch of baking sheets.
I will lower the audio in editing for that so that you don't die.
He's a schmuck. But the 919 is such a legendary car, especially if I'm trying to keep it all Porsche. This, I think, regardless of the brand limit, it deserves to be in the conversation.
For sure.
Your number 10.
My number 10, which I'm actually quite excited about because I know that it wouldn't have been on your normal list.
Well, we'll see.
The Citroen C4.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't have been on my list, but it's a damn good race car. So fair
Citroen
enough.
C4. If you're unfamiliar with, I'm referring
That's
to the
Sebastian Loeb's mid-2000s Citroen, right?
That is Sebastian Loeb's mid-2000s WRC car. 3 constructors titles in 08, 9, and 10. 4 drivers' championships in 07, 08, 9, and 10. 36 wins, 87 podiums in one crazy Frenchman of Sebastian Loeb.
Yeah.
So Citroen C4 WRC. If we ever do a top 10 racing drivers of all time,
I like that. I like that.
Loeb will be on my list. Let it be known. Also, because I'm sort of kind of rooting for him right now to win the Dakar. By the way,
right.
Dakar
It's
news is
going
coming.
on.
Dakar happening as we speak. And if you recall, we talked about the Audi RSQ e-tron a long time
there's
ago.
controversy with that.
Not having the best rally. Anyway,
No.
Citroen C4 WRC is number 10 on my list. Nick Patty, number 9.
You will crucify me for how low this one is.
I'm already upset at you. Go ahead.
Porsche 956. So
Nick, I said number 9. That'd be like the
Porsche
bottom half.
956.
Oh, okay.
So the
I need some
956 being the Rothmans clad, the Cannon clad, the Blaupunkt clad, the Coca-Cola clad, legendary Group C race car, ground effects. This car won everything there is to win, both individually as a race specific championships. There's nothing more to say. This car, it was this or the 962, but we're going to lump them in as the same car because they're almost the same.
They're basically the same car.
This car is the one that gave us the most beautiful Porsche advertisement where it says nobody's perfect. And it's 1 through 8 is Porsche, 9th is BMW, and 10th is Porsche. So what more can you ask for? But yeah,
so
that's
funny.
number 9 on my list.
Wow. Okay. The fact that it's on your list does not surprise me, but I'm going to need a lot of reasoning for the next 8 on your list.
So I can, without revealing the next ones, the next ones are either more innovative, more like they endear, like they're more endearing to the fans or more memorable, or, which this doesn't sound possible, they're more successful. I think there's only one on here that is statistically more successful.
I'm having to think very hard about a Porsche that is statistically more successful than the
I
956/960.
haven't double checked.
Okay,
but bear with me.
Well, we're going to go to my number 9 because
Yes.
I'm a reasonable human being. And if you watched episode 27/listened, you will have heard this. It's the Ford GT40.
Yeah. Again, another car. 3 times, right? 3 times in a row?
3 times.
65, 66, 67?
Sorry. 4 times in a row. 6, 7, 8, and 9.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah. So 1 Le Mans, 66, 67, 68, and 69. But the other thing, the thing that people don't talk about, which is what this car should be legendary for, is it's the first car to ever win Le Mans twice, 2 years in a row, with the same chassis, the same physical car.
Oh, I didn't know that, actually.
Came back and won it twice. So, Chassis number 1075, 1075. In 1968, the car was number 9, and it was driven by Pedro Rodriguez and Lucien Bianchi. They won in 68. In 69, the car was rebadged as number 6, same chassis, rebadged as number 6 in 1969, and it won at the hands of Jackie Ickx and Jackie Oliver.
Right, yeah.
So
in the famous Gulf Blue and Orange.
Yes, that is the famous Gulf Blue and Orange car. But yeah, 68, 69, same car. So Ford GT40, number 9 on my list. Nick Patty, your number 8 car, which won't be better than the 956/962.
So I think this car looks more unique. I think it was an underdog. I have a soft spot for it. And the drivers, including Derek Bell, said it was one of the most perfect handling cars, race cars they've ever driven, including of all the Porsches.
Okay.
The Porsche Carrera 924 GTP.
Yep, okay. Yeah, all right, fine.
So, for those of you that don't know, the GTP ran Porsche backed, I believe, in only 80 and 81. It was massively underpowered because it had like 330 horsepower.
Mm-hmm.
It weighed almost nothing, perfect weight distribution, and a lot of mechanical grip. But you got to remember what this car was running up against, which was Porsche 935s. The Porsche 936 was a relic at the time, so that wasn't even in the list of things that would be running. But you had all the French stuff coming out in the early 80s, all the turbocharged cars. And so, unfortunately, I think Porsche, and you can double check, or people can on Instagram or whatever. Hold on, let me look at it. But I believe the Porsche 924 had a second or third at Le Mans. In class, obviously, because it did not run.
Sure.
That's at the Daytona 24.
Nick, I'm trying to think of... I can think of 2 more Porsches that you could put in front of this.
Okay, so this car finished 6th, 12th, and 13th. And it was in a wet Le Mans in 1980. And then in 81, it used the new 2.5-liter motor. It's not. I'm not seeing the results. It did win the IMSA GTO class overall in 81 and the GT class in 82.
Well, there you go.
And this was basically at the time, obviously, they thought the 911, they were going to be kind of moving away from it. This was supposed to be the heir apparent. Granted, it didn't win like the 911 did, but it was, for Porsche, an entirely new car from the ground up to race at Le Mans. And it won some championships. And I think it's also one of the, if people see it, they call it 944, and it looks the imagine
business.
putting a 924/944 on crack and giving it 935 fenders.
I'd like it noted. I've looked into it because I will confess.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the confessional corner of this episode, where Ben confesses how much he loves Porsches.
Ben Walther, was looking at 944s earlier today. Because I really want one, but I can't afford one.
Before we get to how there's a 944 at the top of your list, what is number 8 on your list?
There's not. Number 8 on my list is kind of a Porsche, but not really. It's a Volkswagen Group car. It is the Audi R8 LMP. Yep, makes sense. Raced Le Mans 6 times, won it 5 times, which is more than any other car. The only car that it lost to for those 6 years was in 2003 to what I think is one of the prettiest Le Mans cars of the modern era, the Bentley Speed 8.
Yes.
Which looks so good. Also, green's just a good color.
Green good.
Green good. The R8 LMP won 63 of the 79 races it entered.
It's just absurd.
Pretty impressive for a modern race car.
Now, Ben, I'm going to ask you a question you always ask me.
I'm going to give you an answer.
So, Ben, have you actually ever seen an Audi R8 LMP in person?
I've never seen anything LMP in person before.
Really?
I've never seen a prototype car in person.
And yet you're not going to Daytona. Shame on you, Mr. Walter.
My first time seeing a prototype car in person will be
Le Mans.
Woo!
Man, must be rough.
Yeah. We were planning. It was actually quite funny. We were planning out as a familia. We were planning out the bit before Le Mans because we're going to be in Paris for 2 or 3 days before we go to Le Mans. Mainly because my mom and my sister were upset that my dad and I were going to France and they weren't. So we're going to be in Paris for like 2 or 3 days, and then while we're at Le Mans, they're going to stay in Paris.
Very nice.
And probably spend the rest of my college fund. But we were planning out that was like 2 or 3 days in Paris, and my parents were like, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "I want Le Mans to start 2 or 3 days earlier. I want it to be now." I was like, "I don't want to do anything. I just want to go to Le Mans." No, I've never seen an LMP car in person. Nick, Patty, have you ever seen an R8 LMP in person?
I have, mostly because there was this one guy that would always run them at SVRA races. Now, this is the part that you're going to hate me about.
I hate you for a lot of things.
I've sat in Alan McNish's and Emanuele Pirro's Audi R8 at VIR, and I have a photo of me in it. So,
okay. Anyway, moving on. Winner. Nick, Patty, your number 7, which will not be better than a 956, 962.
No, it will. It will. And this is not a car you have on your This is not a car you have on your radar. I mean, it's on your radar, but not in your list or that you were thinking.
I know many things. Hit me.
1959.
Jesus.
718 RSK Spider. Targa Florio.
Such good.
We got Sebring, Daytona, the whole lot.
Jerry Seinfeld owns one.
This is objectively not the hottest, not the sexiest.
It's up there.
It is top 3 prettiest cars Porsche has ever made.
Sure.
And it's got the 150 horsepower flat 4 that you remember and know and love from the 356.
And the Beetle.
It weighs 1,240 pounds.
It weighs 1,240 pounds.
I've ridden
motorcycles. I've ridden motorcycles that weigh more than
It's made out of paper mache.
It is.
So some of the drivers, Wolfgang von Trips, Joe Bonnier, Edgar Barth, Umberto Maggioli, Paul Ferrer, and others. This car in 59 competed at Spa, the Targa Florio, Nürburgring, Le Mans, and the Reims Formula 2 race, Geisberg Hill Climb, and the original Goodwood Hill Climb. So at the Targa Florio, the 718.007 established the fastest lap and led the entire race until a last lap suspension failure snatched away victory.
Damn.
So that's unfortunate, but they were put into competition in 58. And guys, I mean, you'll see them because I actually do have a document with photos for Ben. It's
perfect.
It is just jaw-dropping. It's gorgeous.
They're so good.
So that's my number 7.
Nick, I'm assuming you've watched all of Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee?
Yes. Have you watched the Petrolicious video where Derek Bell drives his 718 around Targa Florio?
Yes.
Good
so
video.
Either go watch the Petrolicious video because Petrolicious is an outstanding channel, or go watch the Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee video where Jerry Seinfeld drives Kevin Hart around in a 17 RSK. Because I love that car. My number 7 is a Porsche. I'm totally kidding. It's not a Porsche.
Damn it.
Porsches aren't that great. It's the BMW E30 M3.
Okay.
It had okay. So Nick's going to be so disappointed in my list because I did it properly. These are actually 10 of the best motorsport cars of all time, whereas Nick is trying to rationalize why the 986 Boxster is up there.
I am not.
So
remind me, because I don't care about BMW. The E30 is what year?
E30 M3. So that's the original M3, the early boxy ones.
So all it did was DTM. Okay, pass. Move on. Next.
No. Go away.
You're telling me ahead of the 919 hybrid, you have a DTM car.
Yes. It won the 88 British Touring Car Championship, the 87 and 89 DTM Championships, and it won the first World Touring Car Championship in 1987.
I didn't hear anywhere in there Le Mans, Daytona, Sebring, IMSA, Sports Car Championship.
I'm sorry. Did you have a F1 924 Carrera GTP on your car?
It won 2 IMSA championships. So
this won 4 championships.
Yeah, but it's IMSA versus touring car.
Touring car is fantastic.
But this was racing against Audis and Ferraris and Corvettes, and
this was racing against Audis and Mercedes.
Oh. Yeah, but they were also whatever.
Okay,
you're never going to convince me. You're never going to convince me. An E30 M3 is above any Porsche race car, maybe besides the 914-6.
So the E30 M3 is one of the most successful DTM cars. Actually, I believe it is the most successful DTM car of all time. Also, the M3 in general.
Well, okay, if you're going to make an M3 in general point, I will cede to you that it...
That patience.
I was about to concede something about BMW, but it's never happening again.
You said part of this influenced what it did for motorsports as a whole. The M3 went on to race.
It did birth touring car cults.
There it is.
Okay, fine.
Nick Patty, your number 6, the 986 Boxster.
This is the car with the fattest and hottest ass in all of motorsports. Changed my mind. It is the Carrera RSR Turbo.
Voor de tribune. Dat is de auto waar ik het nu over heb. Het is dus een auto van 8.
Yeah. Okay.
Not particularly successful, but one of the most iconic cars in all of Porsche racing history and all of racing history in general. One of the first cars to don the iconic Martini racing livery. We're not talking... We are talking Golf level of proportion.
Mm-hmm.
And this car was the first foray into, to my knowledge, turbocharged Le Mans racing for Porsche. This car laid the groundwork for what became the 934 and then subsequently the 935. And then obviously with the turbo technology, the 956, 962.
Did you see how expensive these cars are now?
Yes.
Oh
this
my gosh,
car
$6 million.
is pivotal to Porsche's trajectory from 72 or 73, basically through the 90s. And it began one of the most iconic partnerships in all of motorsports history between Martini and Porsche. And it just looks so good. Like this is one of the few Porsches that is like missing part of a bumper, and that was by design because they needed turbos to fit out the back.
Yeah.
It is much good.
This is cool. Oh, and this is back when Porsche was cool and they were single turbo. Because who cares if you die?
This is pre-Widowmaker. Like for all the people,
sometimes you die. It happens.
Yes, listen, dying. It's part of racing.
It happens. Okay. So Nick Patty, obviously, number 6 was the 98 Boxster.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So my number 6.
It's probably going to make me upset.
I certainly hope not.
Okay, well, hold on. Let me guess. Nationality. Or just tell me brand, and I'll try to guess from all of the brand's race cars.
Oh, McLaren.
I would hope you would say
not that one, the other one. Whichever one you're thinking, it's not that one.
I would hope you say the Can-Am cars from the late 60s, but I know...
Oh, holy shit, you're right.
Yes! All right, well...
All right, I'm sorry.
Nothing like a
Listeners,
McLaren and a Chevy 427. I mean...
hopefully, hopefully I remembered to dial down the noise level there. That was really loud. Yeah, so it is the McLaren M8, and it is... all of the M8.
The most dominant Can-Am car of all time.
So, if you're unfamiliar with Can-Am, dear God, go watch Can-Am. It's one of the great... I miss Can-Am. I know that it doesn't make sense to have it now because we can't have race cars that don't have roofs or windshields. But man, was it cool.
Here's the stuff I don't understand about Can-Am is they could still have it and IMSA could sponsor it. And it would literally be no regulations aside from safety regulations. And it's LMP cars basically that are just go. So it would be like the 919 Evo, but a field of them.
But I want
open
if we
top.
have I don't care about open top. Safety, I get it. We don't. People died a lot in the 1960s in racing. Let's be honest. We can dial that down a bit. But I want rear-wheel drive only.
Yes.
And I want
minimum
no hybrid
1,000 horsepower.
And I want no hybrid systems.
No, I agree. NA only.
No, it doesn't have to be NA.
Well, no. I think it should be NA only. Because listen,
yes,
we don't need boost. No, we don't. Listen, they in the 60s were making 1,000 horsepower with 8 cylinders. What's your excuse? Just get over it.
So we're going to talk about the M8. So Can-Am,
which is actually very similar to a car I have on my list.
Which is called the... I know what car that is. I was debating that one or this one. So the Can-Am series is the Canadian-American series.
Yep.
How convenient of them. So the M8...
That's why you sent me that video.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. For God's sakes, Ben just, mid-weekend sent me a video of old Can-Am racing, and I'm like, that's super cool. I don't know why you sent me this, but, cool. And now it all makes sense.
So an M8 of some sort won the Can-Am series in 68, 69, 70, 71, and 72. Also, McLaren won...
Team or... It didn't win it in 72.
An M8.
But it didn't win it in 72 in terms of driver... Are you saying constructor in 72?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I was saying because the one I chose won the drivers in 72.
Yes. So the M6A, which was its predecessor, won in 67. That had a small block Chevy. So the M8A had a 7-liter big block Chevy.
And if you've never watched a video or gone to see an SVRA race in person and heard, I have had the pleasure, and trust me, it was pleasure, of standing behind a 427 McLaren, and I can send you the photo, Ben, on startup.
Mm-hmm.
It is like it is as close to standing behind a Top Fuel dragster as possible without being behind a Top Fuel dragster.
Right. So the M8B was also a 7-liter big block. The M8C is an interesting car because it was offered with a big block or a small block Chevy, a big block or a small block Ford, as well as the Ford Cosworth DFV engine from the Lotus F1 car.
Interesting.
Cool. And then there was the M8D, which had a 7.6-liter big block in it, which is like 500 cubic inches. Not quite. And that is the car that Bruce McLaren died in
at
testing
Goodwood, right?
In 1970 at Goodwood. And then there's the M8E, which was a customer version of the M8B. And there was the M8F, which is the car that I like because it has an 8.1-liter big block Chevy in it. Freaking cool. McLaren M8, Can-Am Racing, good stuff. Nick Patty, did you already do your number 6? You should be number 5 now, right?
Hell, you tell me, brother. All right. So, my number 5.
Yes.
The 3-liter RSR, 74 and 75.
Yeah. up there.
the most ruckus sounding, naturally aspirated Porsche motor that's not a 917, in my opinion. I think that's correct. Listen, guys, this is when we get the thick boys. We get the super wide fenders. We get the iconic whale tail. We get the basis for the IROC series. The IROC cars with 3-liter RSRs. Just look at them. And I chose one of the best photos of one of the coolest liveried ones for Ben to put in here. Listen, guys, it's just 1970s racing. Like, all the liveries were the coolest. The cars were not too much aero. They were the perfect mix of form and function. And it was a car that kept you on your toes the entire time. I will put on my Twitter, which I've now been using to, be like a motorsport journalist or something, Nicholas Patty 21. But I'm going to post a link to the Lee Keen 1974 RSR video because it is
the business. It
is sensual. It is so good. So that's my number 5.
My number 5 is the Jaguar D-Type.
Okay, fantastic choice. The original
D-Type.
UFO.
The original UFO. If you're unfamiliar with the D-Type, there'll be a picture of it here.
And there's a really cool onboard video of Mike Hawthorne around Le Mans in a D-Type.
Yep. So it won Le Mans in 56, 57, and 58. In 57, the D-Type claimed 5 of the top 6 positions at Le Mans, and it was not backed by Jaguar that year.
Yeah.
So, pretty impressive effort from the D-Type there. That's about all I have to say about it. It's cool, it's old, it's pretty, it's made of aluminum, and makes cool inline-6 noises. Enough said.
Well, speaking of cool 6-cylinder noises...
Oh my gosh.
I have the car that is literally called... So, listen.
You're running out of flat 6s.
I'm not. For those of y'all that don't know, to have the nickname, the Warhorse... in Porsche terminology, means something. The Porsche 935. Has been one of my favorite cars since I was a wee lad.
Because I was wondering when I was
going
to be here.
Turbos more than you need. You have over 800 horsepower.
I'm assuming that you're referring to the actual 935, not the GT2 RS.
Correct. No, not the GT2 RS that is gorgeous, but rebodied.
Fantastic, but the actual 935.
The original 935 in all of its variants. I think my favorite would probably be late 70s. I like when they were a little less long. They're beautiful. It's just the one thing I love about the 935 is looking at the rear, and the only thing that looks familiar is those little corner taillights, and that's about it. And the rest of it's dude. Fenders.
It looks so good. I saw a rendering of totally unrelated. And I'm going to interrupt Nick now.
Please.
Because, Porsches aren't that great. I saw a rendering of a C2 Corvette that had fenders that came out like that and was very 935 looking, 935-esque. Also, I'm going to make a shirt that is the picture of the Porsches that nobody's perfect, where the one you're the BMW on, but it's just going to say Porsches aren't that great. That's what it's going to say. I'm totally going to steal that.
Okay, well, there you go. So
that's what I'm doing.
The 935 won overall at the 1979 24 Hours of Le Mans. It won Sebring, Daytona, the 1,000 kilometers in the Nürburgring. Now, this is an impressive stat because this is regardless of factory or privateer. Of the 370 races that the 935 was ever entered into professionally, it won 123.
That's a lot. Not podiums, not finished.
No, one. And that's privateers as well. That is your impressive. Good old boy who was hand fabricating his own fiberglass on the car.
Yep.
There's one photo I love of the 935 at Daytona, and it's in the sunrise in the early morning hours. It's got the fog lights up on it. Mm-hmm. There are gashes and chunks missing all over the car. It is just duct tape left, right, and center, and I got to find this photo. But the 935, I think, regardless of the list, and if you're trying to make it Porsches or whatnot, the 935, I think, deserves a spot regardless of the list for top 10 all time. So there you go.
It's a beautiful car. Nick, unrelated, kind of related.
Yes.
Do you want to go to SVRA this year at COTA?
I've gone every year but last year, so yes.
Okay, cool. We'll make sure to do that. Expect
very
content
much, yes.
in November.
Oh, also, last thing. The 935 was what Paul Newman chose to drive when he went to Le Mans. So if you needed any other cool factor, there you go.
Enough said.
Enough said. Damn right. Enough said.
I'd like it noted. The 935 was on my radar when I was making this list. Because I knew you were going to do you. I tried to not have as many Porsches on my list as possible. Right. Except for my number 4 car, which is the only Porsche on my top 10, which is the 956/962.
There you go. Fantastic.
Has to be on there.
It has to.
Nick already talked about it. 1982 to 1986 World Sports Car Championship. 1982 to 1987 Le Mans winner. And it also, by the way, a 962 also won in 1994.
That's right. Yeah, because they were doing all sorts of body mods to it to try to make it competitive still.
Right. So that was it was not a Porsche backed team or a Porsche backed effort. It was run by a team called Dauer, Dauer. I'll have a picture of that car here. But overall 39 Group C victories, which is impressive because that's back when there were all of 6 races a season. Not now. We're in Formula One. We have 50.
Yeah, that's the other thing to keep in mind for people listening or watching if you're on YouTube. But the amount of races is less. The number of cars is more. Back then it was. And the amount of potential loopholes in the rules to gain an advantage were
so
copious. So for you to have a car that was faster, more reliable, and could put up hundreds of wins.
Yeah.
In the case of the 935, but dozens in other categories. That is something special because the WEC calendar now is basically what the original World Sports Car Championship calendar was, where it would be between 6 and 12 endurance races.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. And that's what, for context, the GT40 won in the 60s. That was why Daytona was run pre-IMSA. That's why Le Mans was run pre-ACO. So anyway.
Yeah, so I don't know. If you were talking about greatest race cars of all time, the 956, 962, those two cars absolutely murdered the Group C era. I mean, it's like Nick said, it's all the good liveries. I'll take this as an opportunity to put in more cool pictures of 956s and 962s here, because you can. Nick Patty, we've reached the podium.
We have.
Any second now, you're going to say 986 Boxster.
No, that's you hit the nail on the head, and honestly, you kind of spoiled it. I'm bummed.
Number 1, 986 Boxster. Nick Patty, your number 3 spot. Greatest race cars of all time. Speak wisely, because you made some interesting choices.
You're really gonna dislike this one.
I'm gonna hate this so much. I can already tell.
The Porsche WSC 95. So, Porsche Deep Cut. This car was not supposed to happen, and this plan was scrapped. And in 2 months, Porsche rebuilt this program from the ground up and won Le Mans.
Oh, this car. Yep, no, totally. Yep, all right.
All right, that's all I need to say.
If I was wearing a hat, hats off to you.
Indeed.
Greater than a 956-962, but we'll allow it.
It's not greater statistically, but I think the fact that this program was built from the ground up in months.
It's a better story.
Well, that's the thing is what's like. Is it impressive that you won a lot of races, but you had a fully funded and developed effort behind it? Well, you would hope that that's what happens after all that money and time.
They had some good liveries on that.
It is a fantastic car.
It's a good-looking car. That is fantastic. I'll put all the good old liveries here. Is that all you have to say about?
Yeah,
the car?
I mean, listen, it is one of the last open top LMP top class cars we got. Meaning we were done with those top class. The last one was like the Audi R15, I think.
Yep, Audi R15.
But that was some manufacturers chose to have open top cars. The 90s was still everybody was running them. If it wasn't a GT1 car,
Full psychopath.
The Ferrari 333 SP, you had the Porsche, you had other stuff. So
the Peugeot 904.
It's just so good looking.
It's a good looking car.
And you got to throw it in there because you know what? It's a deep cut. Not a lot of people know about it. And I think it entered Le Mans twice and won once. So that's a 50% Le Mans win rate. What do you want?
There you go. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Okay, Nick Patty.
Number 3. I want to hear your bronze medalist.
I want you to guess my bronze medalist.
Well, you have to give me the manufacturer.
Nissan.
Oh, well, it's going to be one of their GTP cars.
Incorrect.
Okay, so I swear to God, if you say the Delta Wing, I will punch you through my computer.
It's the Delta. No, I'm totally kidding. I will put up a picture, though, of the Delta Wing because I really wanted that car to work. I remember watching Le Mans. What year did the Delta Wing run? That was like...
It was like 2013, 2014.
Yeah. It was... The Delta.
Okay, I don't know for Nissan. I don't know for Nissan, and I'm going to make a prediction. Your number 1 or your number 2 is going to be the 787 rotary, but we're just going to wait until we get there. But I don't know what your Nissan is.
Incorrect. Nissan. Very simple. R32 GTR.
The Max Chilton.
The only thing that had going for it was having hot liveries.
The Skyline R32 GTR won the Japanese Touring Car Championship in 89, 90, 91, 92, and 93.
Okay, never mind.
It entered... Nick Patty. In those years, it entered 29 races. Mm-hmm. It won 29 races.
You're like, and there was 30 cars in the field? 30 of them were Nissans.
30 of them were Nissans. No, but that is where the GTR got its nickname.
Yep.
Godzilla. It just won everything. It was so fast. The GTR was so.
You said the R32, right?
The R32, yes.
The R32 to me is also in race trim the best looking one.
So good.
Unfortunately, they ran at Le Mans. Trash. Did not do well at Le Mans, but.
I will. By the way, this is probably just going to be pictures of the Calsonic car because
no. You need
which one do you want?
There's one where it's the colors of the Marlboro livery, but it's not. It's not Marlboro. It's let me try to find it. Well, first of all, you have the STP Tizen livery, which is hot.
Yeah.
The red and black.
Yeah.
The HKS livery is hot.
Yeah. Because that's actually what the HKS livery is from. For those of you on the internet, aside from all the people that have it on like their Supras and stuff now, the HKS livery is from this
one. It's the Unicea JECS one.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at that car now. I'll have all
the highlighter orange and the white.
If you're on YouTube, watch that. It was so ahead of its time.
Yep.
Twin turbo, all wheel drive, rear steer, active diffs. It was just so crazy ahead of its time that it literally won everything. So my number 3, Skyline R32 GTR. Nick Patty, your number 2 spot, the 986 Boxster. No?
Wrong. The 987 box. No.
Aw.
So this one is going to.
781.
It's not going to surprise you that it's on the list. It's going to surprise you. It's number 2.
Okay.
The Porsche
For
917.
Okay.
Okay, so guys, here's the thing.
Okay. Please explain this, because I wanted to put it on my list because I like it so much. It won Le Mans twice.
Okay, so this car, in all seriousness, is number 1, but I think no. Listen,
Incorrect.
listen, no,
Wrong.
listen, honey,
Wrong.
honey, listen. The 917 deserves to be number 1. However, there's another car that I think looks better. I think is a more extreme expression of engineering, but I'm going to get to that. I'll save
The 986 Boxster.
Yes. Man, those IMS bearings just. So the 917
Sorry.
is one of those things where you could say enough said. Won Le Mans multiple times. Won the World Sports Car Championship. My favorite driver in all of history, besides my dad, obviously.
Sure.
And besides Alonso, drove it. Joe Siffert, the Swiss driver.
Yes.
So, Gulf Blue and Orange, Martini, the Longtails, gorgeous. Flat 12. Literally, and we've said this every podcast, but I will say it until the day the breath leaves my body. The 917 is top 5 best sounding race cars of all time, but more importantly, the best damn sounding Porsche of all time. It is just.
But I have questions. Number 1, I'm not going to judge you for putting it up there, even though it didn't make my top 15.
But you knew I was going to put it, so that's why you did.
I knew you were going to put it.
No, you can't mention Le Mans without the 917.
Question.
Yes.
Question.
Yes.
Best sounding Porsche of all time. I'll give you that one. Because I would agree with you. Question though.
Oh.
NA or twin turbo?
NA.
There was both. Okay, good. Also, I'd like to bring up the fact that there was a car called the 917/16, and Porsche did have a prototype flat 16 917, and RIP the absolute monster that would have been. Because then they just figured out that bolting turbos was way easier than than reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's your number 2?
My number 2. I would like you once again. I'd like you to guess.
Give me a brand.
Brand. I can't give you brand. It's Italian.
The Ferrari
it's from
30.
It's from the 1980s.
80s Italian. Is it one of the Lancia Group C cars? No.
It is the Lancia Delta.
Oh, Rally. Okay.
Is the Lancia Delta. So, Lancia Delta is the most successful rally car of all time. More than the Audi Quattro.
There you go.
more than any Subaru. So, from 1987 to 1992, Lancia won the Constructors' Championship with a Delta of some sort. They evolved it every year. Starting with the HF in 87 and then finishing with the Integrale in 92. The Delta has 4 Drivers' Championships to its name. 4 for the Delta. The Audi Quattro only has 2. All Subarus to ever race in the WRC have 3 Drivers' Championships. The Citroën Xara, which was Loeb's most successful car, it won 3. The Toyota Celica, which murdered Group A, has 4. The Citroen C4, which Loeb raced, has 4 drivers' championships. The Polo R has 4, and the Toyota Yaris has 4 after this year. If the Yaris wins next year, it will be more successful than the Delta, but I don't think as impressive as the Delta, because the Yaris, the first 3 is basically a totally different car from this year, or from the 2022 car, because the 2022 car is a hybrid and they changed they changed so much, but it's still a Yaris.
Right.
So it's in there for 4. So the Delta, most successful rally car of all time, and frankly, rally is cooler than everything else. So my number 2 car, the Lancia Delta.
Wow.
Nick Patty, your number 1, the 986 Boxster. Anyway, moving on. My number 1 is sorry, Nick Patty, your number 1.
So you're going to say I'm splitting hairs, but they're entirely different cars.
You are, and I know what this is, and you're wrong, but that's fine.
The 917 Spider that raced in Can-Am.
What was that called? The 917?
Well, there's 2. No, there's the 917-10, and then there's the 917/30. Here's the thing. I think the 917-10 looks so much better. Won the championship in 72 with George Fulmer at the wheel.
Yes.
We also have George Fulmer's personal 911, and we also have his autographs on all the original Can-Am posters that we have that he raced in, but that's beside the point. I actually have seen his number 6 L&M racing.
Wait, hold up.
What?
Pause. Back up.
Yeah.
Your dad's 911
is George Fulmer's personal 911 that he drove and got from Porsche. Yes. That's why he bought it.
What?
So we'll put it on the Instagram. I have a photo with George Fulmer.
This at some point.
I have the photo with George Fulmer up in Idaho at his home. And we're standing in front of his garage, in front of the 911. And the Boss 302 prototype that Ford built for the 2013 car, that was a non-serial numbered car that they gave him after the testing, and that car in its specifications never made it into production. It is a complete one-off. So anyway, but I have a photo with him.
Anyway, moving on.
So my dad's license plate on that car is Can-Am 72, because that's what George Fulmer had it as on his 911. That
explains the license plate. Yep. Okay, cool.
So anyway, fun
okay.
backstory. But I have seen that actual car in person. It's at the Indianapolis Museum at Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Oh, cool.
And it is so hot. Now, the reason that I chose the 917 in its Can-Am trim is because of the 917-30. Okay. That's the famous Sunoco one that everybody knows that Mark Donohue drove.
The blue and yellow car. Yep.
Now here's the thing. So I'm going to read a little expert from Car Throttle. Okay?
Please.
The 1973 is considered the 1973 Porsche 917-30 Can-Am Spider is considered by many racing historians to be the most powerful race car to have ever turned a wheel on asphalt. Are you ready for these statistics, ladies and gentlemen? I'm so excited.
Oh, they're bananas. This car was
twin turbo 12-cylinder, 1,580 horsepower.
Stupid.
And in race mode, it would make 1,100 horsepower.
Right.
And at 1,100 horsepower, it had a 0 to 60 of 1.9 seconds, a 0 to 200 of 10.9 seconds. And in race trim, it would break 260 miles an hour in an open cockpit fiberglass car.
Oh my gosh.
So,
this car was bananas.
So this car basically killed Can-Am.
Yeah.
So in 1973, this car won every race except one. Mm-hmm. And his domination had SCCA introduce a new 3 mpg fuel consumption rule, maximum. Yeah, maximum. His car sold at auction for $4.4 million, and at the time, it was the most valuable Porsche ever sold. But guys, name a car that has that much horsepower, and first of all, wasn't totaled. And this car also is the car that broke the 5-year consecutive win streak by McLaren, as Ben alluded to earlier. Um, let's see. Wow, I didn't actually know this either. Apparently, the car was taken to Talladega in 1980 or 1975 to break the FIA closed circuit speed record, and it generated an, you ready for this? Average speed of 221.16 miles an hour, and it held that record until 1980. So there you go. That's my number one greatest race car of all time.
Dude, okay. So I'm gonna put in a picture right now for those of you watching on YouTube of a 91730 without the bodywork on top. You can see the rear tire. It's a 19-inch wide rear tire. Sorry, rear wheel. Like, that's stupid. That's crazy. Yeah, 917. Hi, Watson. The 91730 is a bananas car. And honestly, I feel kind of stupid that it wasn't on my list. So, oh no, sorry, it was going to be on my list, and then I put the M8 on my list. That's right.
Right.
I was
The lesser.
I didn't want to put two. Well, yeah, okay.
The lesser.
To each their own. Nick Patty.
Wow.
I've got one left. You know it's not a Porsche.
Right.
What do you think?
It's going to be a McLaren MP4/4.
It is the McLaren MP44. Well done. It's as predictable as ever.
So if you wanted a mainstream opinion, good thing you came on by.
Came right here. Well, I mean, here's the thing. Is it's still to this date the most successful F1 car. 16 races entered, 15 won, 15 pole positions. And some Brazilian dude won a championship in 1988 in it. Works for me.
Works.
Works for me.
That's all she wrote.
That's all she wrote, folks. No, the MP44 was just such a dominant car. It was stupid fast. Yeah, that was, in my opinion, one of the peak eras of Formula One.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, late '80s was bananas. And you say my thing was mainstream. I don't think many people would have put the Lancia Delta on there.
No. I mean the greatest race car of all time.
No, that was for sure the generic answer.
Just for my own, just for posterity's sake, greatest race car of all time. Google search.
Is
Let's
it
see
the
what comes up.
MP44?
It's on the list. Yeah, they have a lot of other cars, but
Okay,
they quantify it by legendary cars of all time.
Oh, sorry. Also, yeah, if you look it up, greatest race cars of all time on Google, Audi Sport Quattro S1 E2 is on there. Not true.
Although I said mine was mainstream, the 917 is also on this list.
Is also on the list.
But I was trying to keep it Porsche specific, so whatever.
Which, to be fair, here's the thing. You can't make a greatest of all time list and not have it be somewhat mainstream or predictable.
Right, because there are so many
I'm not going to come in
cars.
Here and be like, the
Porsche
Fiesta was a great car.
Boxster. Yeah.
Right, 986 Boxster. Yeah,
wow.
So those are, in our opinion, the 10 greatest plus 5 race cars of all time. I think Nick Patty's list was... I mean, Porsches aren't that great.
In all honesty, out of the Porsche selection, agree or disagree? Like within the spectrum of Porsches,
91730, yes.
You're like everything else, no.
No. What was number 2?
The regular 917.
Okay, so 91730, 917, no. Top 10, sure. Number 2, no. I'd go 91730, 956.
Fair enough.
935. And then everything else after that, I don't really care about.
Yeah, fair enough.
Let's be honest, Porsches aren't that
I'm
great.
surprised you didn't put in the Petter Solberg and the iconic Subarus.
Here's the thing: is I didn't want. If I could, this list could have been all rally cars.
Oh, of course.
It could have been all Can-Am cars.
Of course.
It could have been all F1. I wanted to have a range, a variety. You know.
Well, that's what my range is, from 718 RSK to 91730.
Question. Of your top 10, one of them is water cooled. The rest are air cooled. The one being the 919. The rest are air cooled. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Wait, wrong. The 924 Carrera GTP was water cooled.
Oh, sorry. Forgot about that. Forgot about your RX-7. That was, if you watched our last YouTube video, you will know that I like to poke Nick. It's really fun.
He likes to poke me until I break and I end up on the news.
It's too easy. Yeah. So I don't know. I wanted like to pick the greatest rally car, which I was like, oh, it's like gotta be because just mentally you're like rally Subaru. So I was like, it has to be a Subaru. It's
right.
Like, the Subaru only won 3 championships. It's actually not that many for the like most synonymous rally brand to most people. So I mean, Sebastian Loeb has more championships than Subaru.
Sebastian Loeb is on crack, so
dude, the fact that he's still like he's
the Tom Brady of rally.
He's the Fernando Alonso of rally.
As much as I want to take that compliment, no, because Loeb's winning.
Loeb's winning. Also, it would be like if Schumacher just like hopped in an F1 car every once in a while.
Right.
And like won races. So like Sebastian Loeb last year raced the Monte Carlo Rally in the M Sport Puma and won. I'd like it noted, Loeb was winning championships when I was 1 year old.
Yeah.
The dude's nuts.
He's absurd.
So like I wanted to put the Delta in there, and then I wanted to put Loeb's most famous car in there because, well, crazy Frenchman. GT40 obviously had to be in there. R8 LMP, I think, was pretty obvious.
Right.
E30 M3, despite the fact that Nick doesn't like it for some reason, I think had to be in there. Can-Am is cool. Sums that up.
That's awesome.
Old Le Mans sports car racing, D-Type makes sense. 956, 962. Nick's wrong, and it should be higher up. And R32 Skyline.
There you go.
Everything. There we go. Sums it up. 10 greatest race cars of all time.
Plus 5.
Plus 5. Sorry. I will have the audio version of this out tonight on all platforms. And I will attempt to have the video version out tomorrow. Depends on whether my laptop decides to take a poo after I go eat some dinner.
My laptop is like my laptop's warming as a foot warmer for me right now. It's so warm.
Yeah, dude. Like the fan is just ripping in the background for my computer. So as always, if you've made it this far, thank you for listening. Whatever platform you're listening to this on, please give us a follow, please give us a rating, please give us a review. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening to it on YouTube, we don't care. If you're on YouTube, hi. Also, please subscribe, please turn on notifications, please like the video. As always, thank you for listening. This has been episode 28 of The Clutch Dump. We'll see you next time.